Hi everybody, it's Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and for this first video of 2022 I thought I would just show you some things that I bought the last couple of months that are new to me, new tools, new products, and some fabric that I bought, and tell you a little bit about some of my plans for how I'm going to use them. Okay, this is the first thing that I bought, and I bought this right before Thanksgiving time, and you all may have one of these. This is to hold your rulers in, your rotary cutting rulers. Now, I've never had one before. I used to keep them in a drawer in my cutting table, but they weren't handy. The drawer was kind of stiff. It was hard to get the drawer in and out. So I'm using an old metal drafting table for my cutting table, and has a hollow core door on the top and my cutting mats on top of that. So most of the time I would just leave them on my cutting table and then carry them back and forth from there over to here where my sewing machine is when I needed to trim something up while I was sewing blocks or borders or something. And then I was constantly forgetting where I left the rulers. I'd be at the cutting table and then realize the ruler I need is over on my sewing table, so I was running back and forth. This way I have, you know, a designated place to keep my rulers, and now I'm keeping track of them a lot better, so when I get done cutting I'll just stick them back here, and this sits on the back of my cutting table, and so they're nice and handy. Now, for my long arm rulers, they're thicker because you need them because of your hopping foot. They need to be thicker. So I haven't tried this, but I don't think they will fit in here. Okay, here's one of my long arm rulers, and they're quite a bit thicker this way, so they don't fit into these channels, which is fine. They're either laying on my long arm table or they're hanging on a pegboard that's right next to the long arm table. And for my smaller ones, while I'm working on a project, they are in a small tray. Now, most rulers will have a hole drilled through them somewhere that you can hang them from a peg rack. My little ones, I just usually keep in a little tray that I have sitting on my long arm table, so they're nice and handy. So that doesn't seem to be quite as much of a problem because I do have that peg rack that I can put my rulers on and just pull them off from there when I need them. So that wasn't a problem. It was the rotary cutting, the fabric cutting rulers that I was having trouble keeping track of. So that was one of my recent purchases. Another thing that I bought was this package of Primrose Hill 10-inch squares, and I have a project in mind for these, and I'll be working on that later in 2022. So this will be a pieced and applique project combined, so I'm looking forward to that. I need to get some yardage fabric for the borders and that kind of thing, but this is from Melanie Colette of Hello Melly Designs, and it's for Riley Blake. So if you look up Riley Blake, if your store sells Riley Blake fabric, you may be able to find that there. Okay, now for Christmas, the last two Christmases, my family members, we've been putting our wish lists on Amazon so that anybody can go there and see what somebody is wanting and purchase it. And that's because my husband's really hard to buy for. And he says I'm hard to buy for, which, give me a piece of fabric, I'm happy. I don't think I'm hard to buy for, but he does. Of course, he has no idea how to go to the fabric store and buy fabric. And my oldest daughter lives, halfway across the world, so Amazon is easier for her than to buy something where she lives and then ship it over. So we do that, and this year I put a bunch of quilting, sewing type notions on there. And one thing that I wanted was a nose stick applique mat. This one is called Precision Quilting Tools. This one is called Precision Fusing Mat, and it's 17 by 24 inches. I haven't used it yet, but I think this will be really handy, and you can just put it on, like I could put it on my wool mat here, and then press my appliques and not worry about things sticking. So anyway, there's care instructions. There's a pressing sheet that is included to prevent the fusible from getting on your iron, so you can put your fusibles down on the mat and then put that sheet on top and then iron through that sheet, and there you go. So I'll be using this in the future too. And another thing that I got for Christmas from my husband is I got a package of So Simple Shapes. These are Granny's Garden by Lori Holt of Be In My Bonnet. I wanted to get some more templates so that I have a variety of things to choose from when I make appliques. Now normally what I do is just draw them myself, and I use just circle templates like drafters use or artists, and I use those and make my flowers and leaves and that kind of thing with those. These have a variety of flowers in them. They've got stars and some other shapes in there. I haven't opened this up yet to see what all's in there. I'm just seeing what's through the package. So these will be fun to play with. And another gift was this Sew by Row book. This is by Jeanette White and Erin Hamilton, and its subtitle is 27 Skill Building Techniques. And I've looked through this a couple of times. I haven't done anything in it yet, but it starts out with some simple techniques, and then with each row in this quilt that you make, you learn a new skill. There are things like applique, there's dimensional piecing, more complex designs, there's paper piecing, there's just a bunch of different techniques in here, and a lot of good instructions on how to cut your fabric, and what you want your seams to be look like when you get done, that kind of thing. So I think this is going to be interesting. I'm not certain when I'm going to get to this one, but that's one thing I've been wanting to do this year, is to make a row quilt, and I've only made a few of those in my lifetime, and I think they're a lot of fun. So I want to try some of these techniques and maybe some of the patterns. Which, speaking of row quilts, okay, last year I started working on this Sew by Row quilt by Lori Holt, and I can't remember what month we started this, but each month they would send you the kit that you need to make the row of blocks for that month. But I think it was August was the last shipment we got, and then shipping has been just horrendous around the world right now, and everything came to a halt because the shipping was just backed up. But they are supposed to start again in January, so I'll be able to complete. I think we just had 3 more rows to go, so we're almost there. It may just be 2 more rows, actually. I can't remember which ones I've done and which ones I haven't, but there's just a few rows left to go, and then I'll have this quilt ready for quilting. And let's see, another book that my husband bought me for Christmas is this one. This is the Kansas City Stars Quilt Sampler book, and this is by Barbara Brackman. So he knows I like vintage blocks, so these are really going to come in handy for research, and just a little information that she includes. She has a little clip of what the newspaper article said about those blocks. So there's some fun information in here. And there are templates that are included, and they're separated in 1930s and 1940s. So that will be really fun to work through. And some of these blocks I've already done, and some of them I haven't. Some of them I've avoided because they're not going to be simple to make. A lot of these were, women were hand sewing their blocks, so Y seams weren't too much of a problem, which I know how to do Y seams, but I haven't done any online because it's kind of an advanced technique, and I'm trying to keep things at a beginner to intermediate level so that it'll interest more people. So but I may do a couple of the more advanced blocks in the future. But anyway, I'm interested in getting some reading time with that book. Okay, another thing that I bought was back before Thanksgiving. I went and bought EQ8 software for my computer so that I can draft quilt blocks and quilt designs on the computer. And I normally do that with graph paper and colored pencils, and it's very time consuming. So it's been fun to play with that, and I'm still learning a lot. There's I don't know that there's a really big learning curve to it, but there is a lot to the software that I haven't figured out just yet. But there are a lot of videos online, and they're got a lot of hints and stuff that can help you out. So every time I get on there and I play, I learn something else. So hopefully I'll have it mastered sooner than later. And but I've already done a couple of quilts on that software, and want to give you a little glimpse of those. Here's one. This one's I'm going to use the Primrose Hill. This one I'm going to use the Primrose Hill fabric for, so I need some background and border fabric to go with that. And then here is another quilt that I'll be working on. I was wanting to get to that one really soon, but I don't know that I'm going to. Anyway, I have a couple of other quilts on there. I'm going to be concentrating at the beginning of the year on finishing up a couple of projects that I started and didn't get finished, so I'll be working on that first. Okay, you can see here on my sewing machine, this is another thing that my husband bought me. It's a Seam So Easy seam guide. This is a Lori Holt design, and I just have it stuck to my machine with washi tape. Now what I have been doing was using glow line tape and just taping it down here, and that worked well. Thing was, the tape would start curling up. So I'm trying this out, and it's working pretty well. I found I did need to tape it way down here on the front in order to keep the fabric from grabbing here, because when I'd sew a piece, especially when I was sewing units together into the block, a seam would hit here and it would snag and it would halt the fabric from going forward. So I taped this down, so I'm going to see if that will work any better. Anyway, so that's another thing that, another tool that I'm going to try out. And this is a fat quarter bundle that I pre-ordered. This is the cookbook line by Lori Holt that just came in middle of December. So I got more fabrics to finish up a couple of projects. And for the sampler quilts that I want to finish up, I've used my EQ8 to help me figure out how I want to lay them out, and it helps you calculate the yardage you need. So I spent my Christmas bonus on fabric this year, so I've got several more pieces here to finish up my projects. So, and I will be working on those at beginning of the year. And this is a background. and this one is a border. So I'm looking forward to getting a couple of those projects done. I also have a couple sets of vintage blocks yet that I want to do something with, and I'm not sure when I'll get to those, but I got a lot of things planned. Finding time to do all of this can become an issue, so I don't know when I'm going to get to all of this exactly, and I'm going to try and still do some blocks, patterns for you, some vintage blocks. I don't think I'm going to be able to get one done every week, but I'm going to try and get some in anyway. I think that's a lot of fun. I like sampler quilts because I don't get bored with making the same block over and over and over again, and this way, you know, you can experiment with color and with fabric and with texture and you know, print size, and in the end it all comes together. So I'm looking forward to finishing a couple of sampler quilts. I've got 4 planned that I already have blocks for, which is another issue with making a block every week. You know, they accumulate. So each week I make a new block. By the end of the year I have 52 blocks, and I have to figure out what to do with them. So you know, they're starting to accumulate, so I'm going to make them into quilts and get those projects underway. So I think that's about it, other than trying to get organized. And I've got a notebook, a spiral notebook here that a friend gave me, and so I've started taking notes and trying to organize how I want to do things and what order, what do I want to do first. And since the sampler quilts, the blocks are already done, I think I'm just going to finish those up. I still have 2 Christmas quilts to quilt, and I normally will save those until like June or July and do a Christmas in July type thing, but I've got 2 of them this year, and I have table runners to do. I have 2 table runners, and so things kind of piled up on me this past year, so I'm going to try and get some of that done. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little look at what's new here in my studio for 2022. And I hope you all have a very good new year. I hope 2022 is much better than the past 2 years have been. And I will see you in the next video.
Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links. And to keep up with my latest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.